Well, welcome everybody to this week's live show, and we're very, very excited. We have a guest with us. You can see there the very brightly lit Mike Patton. Mike, yeah. So
good morning, everyone.
Welcome to the studio, Mike. Mike's joining us from the West Coast. He is, of course, the Chief Executive Officer of DSB Plus. Very successful, long-serving commercial flooring business over there. He's also a key thought leader. I call him a titan because of his work in the industry, his thought leadership. He's on the Starnet Advisory Board also, and has been very active in the Starnet Alliance for very many years. So, Mike, welcome to the show.
Good morning, Mick, Andre. Nice to see you. Everyone joining live and that may be watching this later via tape recording or delayed recording. I wanted to start. Mick and Andre wanted me to tell a little bit of a story about how I got into the industry. I graduated from San Diego State University with a degree in marketing, and when I got out, the economic circumstances led me to the commercial flooring industry. And I went to work for a carpet mill that was based in Southern California so that I could stay in the San Diego area. And they, in short order, sent me to San Francisco with a quote unquote promotion. And so I didn't get any more money, but the cost of living doubled. So it was quite a positive experience.
Perfect arrangement, isn't it?
and so my boss told me that if I was ever going to get anywhere in the industry, I needed to get into a big market. And of course, the San Francisco Bay Area is one of those key markets in the industry.
But I mean, Mike, you're not a native San Franciscan, are you?
No, I'm not a native Californian either. Grew up in Ohio and Illinois, Cleveland and Chicagoland areas, and found my way to San Diego State in my early 20s, late teens, and never found my way home. So California's been home for a long time. Love it here, and residing now here in Carmel by the Sea, which is a beautiful little enclave just south of Pebble Beach for those golfers who are watching this morning.
So Mike, I hope you enjoy the same kind of longevity that your fellow Carmel resident Clint Eastwood enjoys.
Indeed, Clint is one of my mentors from afar. He's still making movies at the ripe old age of 90, and I hope to be slinging commercial flooring at the ripe old age of 90, and at least being an influencer and leading some sort of effort in our industry. But yeah, he has been a model for staying engaged, and I think that's important for all of us to stay engaged as long as we can.
All right. Well, the commercial flooring industry was very different when you began, 30 years ago. What we want to do on this show is really get a perspective on how you've seen the industry change, what kind of implications there are for the future. You've still got, another 20, 30 years of runway left. So you've got to navigate those waters too. So take us back to those early days when you set up DSB. How did you do that, and how did that come about, and how did the industry appear to you then?
Well, I would start by looking at it from the vendor or manufacturer perspective. The commercial flooring industry 30 plus years ago was a carpet industry. Mm-hmm. Carpet was 80% of what we put on the floor, if not 85%, and the rest was pretty much vinyl at that point. So it was carpet and vinyl. It was I think, a very simple business. When I got into the industry, as many on viewing this show will remember, there were over 500 carpet mills in the United States. And I think most people would agree that today there are less than a dozen meaningful carpet manufacturers in the US market. And so there was a huge consolidation, and I watched that. I was paying attention as the industry shifted from 500 carpet mills to 200 to 100 to 50 to what we all know today as, roughly a dozen. And so I was paying attention to that, at the same time paying attention to what the interior design community was asking for, general contractors, flooring contractors, and I saw a shift. And as the vendors shifted, so did the market, and what the market wanted from a commercial flooring contractor began to shift. So as I watched the consolidation, that at the vendor level, that's really business 101. If you look at any industry, it's pretty much a bell curve. In the early days of the industry, there are a few companies. Then as the industry matures, the number of companies increase. And then as the industry matures further, the number of companies through consolidation diminishes and is reduced. And so that bell curve takes effect, and you can see that in every industry. For instance, I'm an avid motorcyclist. You look at the motorcycle industry in the early 1900s, the early 20th century, there were hundreds of motorcycle manufacturers. Today, there's less than 5. Auto manufacturers, same way after World War II, there were over 100 US-based auto manufacturers. And today, of course, there's half a dozen that are based here, that are US-based. And so in talking to architects and interior designers and general contractors, realized that they wanted something more. And what they wanted was, as I was sitting in a Kaiser Permanente meeting with their purchasing company that they had hired, and this gentleman from Texas said he was looking for a single throat to choke. And I thought, oh, well, that's a lovely way to put it.
Nice.
But what he was really saying is what Kaiser Permanente and their purchasing service wanted was a single company who could provide product and installation and after installation warranty for the entire Kaiser system across the US. And that really hit me. And I left that meeting and I said, well, I can't do that. DSB Plus is not a company that can provide that in all of these geographies. And so I began to see a pattern where customers, whether it was Google, a local Silicon Valley-based company, you may have heard of them, small.
Yeah, no, man.
They're a bit of a startup, but they're going to be somebody someday. And anyway, they would put out an RFP for maintenance, for instance, for the entire country, for tens of millions of square feet of Google facilities. Well, I couldn't address that. We have a maintenance division, but I couldn't address on that particular scale. And so after I saw Kaiser and Google and Apple and large Charles Schwab based here in San Francisco, as I saw these large companies changing what they wanted, they were shifting from doing business with a bunch of little general contractors locally who did business with a bunch of small commercial flooring contractors locally. And I believe that the business is shifting from a local focus, which it will never lose, but it needs layered on top of that a national footprint, a national service arm. And I think that's where the industry is really heading.
Very, very interesting. And I know you had a slide on that consolidation. Perhaps if I can show that now, that talks a little bit about that supply chain evolution. I'm actually going to make the slide big, but if you can just talk to this slide for a second, Mike.
Sure. Sure, and let me know if you're having any audio problems on my end. But
no, you're coming over crisp and clear.
Very good. So this is how I imagine what I've seen in my 30 plus years, and really starting in the early 80s as I did research on the industry. But the number of commercial carpet manufacturers, the suppliers, the vendors consolidated. And that's at the top of the slide, going from circa 1980 to today, from 500 to, as I said before, less than really a dozen. But the other consolidation that I think people may have missed is the consolidation at the bottom of the circa 1980 silo there. General contractors have changed. The research that I did told me that in 1980, in the early 80s, the number of general contractors and the size of them was very similar to the fragmented nature of the carpet mills. General contractors at the time were predominantly local. They were small to medium size. And what happened over the ensuing 30 plus years was the consolidation in that market and the emergence of billion-dollar general contractors, which never really existed prior to this evolution. And today, there are dozens of billion-dollar plus revenue general contractors. And so if you think about that, those general contractors' needs have changed. However, as commercial flooring contractor industry, our ability and our service offerings have not changed dramatically. And so therein is where I see the next step in the evolution, which is the future. And that's where the commercial flooring contractor industry shifts, changes, offers more to meet the needs of those billion-dollar plus general contractors and large regional general contractors. But there's something else, and it's not on this slide, but everybody listening is aware of this. And that is, there was also the emergence over the last 15 years of something that never existed in the industry before. And that was the emergence of the professional real estate services industry. We know them as CBRE, Jones Lang LaSalle, JLL, Cushman Wakefield, Cushwake. And these are now multi-billion-dollar commercial real estate services companies that never existed before. And they develop relationships with large corporate end users, healthcare end users, et cetera, depending on the segment. And they supply, they outsource what used to be a real estate and facilities function. And if you think about it, you've got general contractors on one hand that are $1 billion plus in revenue. You've got commercial real estate services companies that are $1 billion plus in revenue. They have a certain level of need, service, requirements, insurance, financial strength that the average commercial flooring contractor doesn't always meet. And that's where I see a shift coming. And that's what I began to work on some 5 years ago, was what could the future of the commercial flooring contractor look like in the context of what our customers are asking us for.
And you know, for our audience who are listening in now, what do you think those implications are?
You're breaking up, Mick. I don't know if you noticed that, Andre.
Yeah, a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry. How is that now? Is that better?
That is better.
Okay. I'm on a wireless connection, and sometimes it goes in and out. I'm in a separate location today, not in my home office.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you're going in and out. So maybe Andre could ask that question.
Okay.
Yeah. So Mike, I mean, you know, we've known you for a long time, and we've seen some incredible innovation coming from you, and you know, I know that you're always thinking about, you know, the next thing, right? And you know how to better position, you know, both your organization and also the industry. I really think you're one of these, you're one of these people that do believe in this industry, Mike. You know, and I think, you know, you've always stated that, you know, the way that we run the industry as a whole, you know, is advantageous for each individual player.
Andre, you're beginning to break up as well. You went from being really clear to breaking up. Did you catch that, Mick?
I did not. Maybe there's a little bit of.
We're having some kind of technical glitch here by the looks of things.
Yeah, and I'm sure those watching have never had a technical glitch with a remote working situation. So I know this is a first, and so we're breaking new ground here.
Yes.
Yeah, and you're coming over loud and clear, Mike. So
yeah, you're doing good. So maybe we shut up and just Mike talks, and that's the way we'll fix the technical glitch.
Well, I feel a responsibility to the industry, and the industry has been incredibly good to me since the day I got out of college and joined the industry. It has taken care of me. It's taken care of my family. And the employees that we have at DSB Plus, I feel very close to and I'm very responsible for. And one of the things, and I know talking to other commercial flooring contractor owners, they feel the same way in Starnet, which is the bulk of the people that I interact with. And they're very grateful for their staff and their teammates. And there's a serious feeling of responsibility to them as there's a generational shift in our industry. And I think it's coming over the next, I think we're in the middle of it now. And over the next 10 years, there's going to be a shift, in my opinion, where owners like myself, who were founders, are going to be developing exit strategies, and a next generation is going to come up. And again, being a student of business, one of the things that I've noticed, I'm in a Vistage group, which is a CEO organization, and I've been in for 11 years. And there was a very moving, at least moving to me, presenter. We have a presenter, a speaker, half-day speaker every other month. And the genesis of his message that hit me about 10 years ago, he shared some statistics on small privately held businesses like mine, like most of the Starnet dealers. And he said, 10% of these companies make a successful sale of their business. I thought about that for a minute. I went, 10%, only 10% sell. Okay. He continued presenting, and he said, and another 10% make a successful transition to a next generation, be it, familial or not, doesn't really matter. And then he gave that pregnant pause. I said, okay, 10% sell, 10% make a transition to a next generation of leadership. I'm thinking to myself, ooh, oh, what about the other 80%? And he said, he laughed and he said, well, I was hoping somebody would ask. He said, those are the other 80% close their doors. And I wrote that down, and I was a little saddened by that. Now that was 10 years ago. We weren't thinking about a next generation. We weren't thinking about a sale, but I was always thinking about the future. And I said, that's a pretty bleak future. So what can I do, number one, to protect the future of the 20-something, 30-something, and 40-something teammates we have at DSB Plus? So that's where it started. I thought, how can I protect them from that 80%? And it started to germinate. It started about 10 years ago. And then, as we've seen, consolidations have happened in other industries, and they've been good for the industries, but not always good for the employees. Because you bring two companies together, you may not need two controllers. You may not need two receptionists, right? And so during consolidation, there's a move towards efficiency, right? How can we bring two companies together and make them more efficient than they were on their own? So I had this real concern about, selfishly, our employees, and I kept thinking about that. How can we ensure that the industry continues to be a healthy place for people to enjoy a wonderful working life and provide for their families? We had our DSB, every quarter we do a quarterly review with all of our employees. And at the most recent quarterly review, we talked about numbers. And I think this will probably resonate with most of the people watching this. But I threw out a number on the slide presentation, and it was 30. And then the next number that came up on the slide was 95. And I said, what do those numbers mean to we brought the whole company together, all three branches. And there were some guesses. Well, 30 was the number of internal employees we have, and 95 was the number of extended family that those 30 people have. And so we take our responsibility seriously, that we're responsible for those 95 spouses and children. And then we threw up some numbers for our number of installers, 75 and 200. And it's the same thing. We have 75 installer employees in the field and 200 of their spouses and children, family members that we're responsible for. And so I think the industry needs to pull back a little bit and think about those statistics of 10% successfully are sold on average. That's privately held companies. 10% make a successful transition to a next generation, and 80% close their doors. And when I thought about the local San Francisco Bay Area market, I could name you over the last 30 plus years large, successful, small, successful commercial flooring contractors that closed their doors. And that took care of the owners, but it didn't take care of the employees. And so as I watched consolidation happen on the vendor side of our industry, I thought it only logical that perhaps consolidation would secure the future of all the wonderful people that work at these roughly 2,000 commercial flooring contractors across the U.S.
I think I have a slide on that, Mike, that you use. Yeah, 2,100 commercial flooring contractors roughly, no single commercial flooring contractor has more than 2% of the market share. The top 10 have less than 10%, which shows how fragmented the industry is. And more than 90% of the commercial flooring contractor market is outside of those top 10 players. So yeah, highly fragmented, and as you say, vulnerable unless we start thinking about the future.
Yes,
Mike, I've got the couple of things. I'm just busy sitting listening to everything you're saying, but I think even today you've already made some future moves already within your organization. You're moving towards an employee share ownership plan. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm. Mick, are you hearing Andre clear, or is it just
yes?
Me?
And Luke Canup of DCO said on the YouTube, everybody's coming over clearly. So it might just be a little bit of communication at your end. So operate under the assumption that the audience can hear as well, Mike.
Great. That's great. I won't bring that up again. However, I didn't hear Andre's or your questions clearly enough. So try it again, Andre.
Oh, Mike, we were speaking a little bit about the future, but I've also seen that you've been doing certain things that already is a little bit innovative. I mean, for example, you are thinking and starting an employee share ownership plan. Is that? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So there's two main things that we're working on today, in addition to the blocking and tackling of being a commercial flooring contractor every day. But there's really three main, there's three main things that we're working on. One is developing a next generation leadership training program. We don't want to wait until it's a year before the founders of DSB Plus are ready to retire, and then we're shifting around trying to find someone to lead the company, right? Because we do not want to be in the 80%. We do not want to close the doors. We have young people, young families that are dependent on our company, and we want to make sure that the company, which is in its 25th year, is set up for the next 25 years. All right. And so one is developing a next generation identification and training program. Number two is we implemented about 5 years ago an ESOP plan for our employees. That's an employee stock ownership plan. Some of you may be familiar with it. But through Vistage, our CEO group that I belong to, I was exposed to this concept and liked that it would share the success of DSB Plus with the people who were instrumental in getting us here through this first 25 years. And of course, that's our employees and teammates. And so the ESOP is something that is not for everybody, but is certainly something to consider as a recruitment and retention tool, right? There's a competition for talent. I think coming out of this pandemic, we're seeing it more than ever. And there's going to continue to be a competition for talent. And we have to make our company, we believe, we need to make our company as attractive as possible to the millennials and the young people who we need to attract to our industry.
And Mike, the other thing that I find very interesting about your business is, we have, first of all, you're a union shop, right? So that's, I suppose being in California, I suppose, that's most probably a good competitive advantage. But also on top of that, you also have a very, very robust maintenance business. Can you tell us, because I think a lot of people have tried, they've got a great, let's call it a commercial flooring business, tried this maintenance area, not always succeeded. Tell us a little bit about how did you create the maintenance business? And what are, if anybody ever wanted to sort of initiate a maintenance business, what are the sort of pitfalls they need to think about?
Yeah, that's a great question, Andre. And I'll step back just a step before I answer that directly and talk about the marketing research that we undertook about 12 years ago and what led me to the conclusion that our industry would consolidate. Started 12 years ago when I went to the commercial interior designers and architects. I went to the principals of general contractors. I went to property managers and I asked them, what do you want from the perfect commercial flooring contractor? And they told me. So I dutifully wrote it down and I brought it back to my business partners. And I said, here's what our future looks like if we're going to survive and thrive. And they said, holy cow, how are we going to do that? I said, well, you eat an elephant one bite at a time. And what they said they wanted is they wanted more than carpet and vinyl. They wanted wood. They wanted rubber. They wanted polished concrete. They wanted epoxy. They wanted terrazzo. They wanted maintenance. So we listed all of the things that our customers told us they wanted. And then we said, okay, which one do we do first? And we chose maintenance. And we chose maintenance for a specific reason. Because the holy grail, we have something called the customer pyramid at DSB Plus. And at this customer pyramid, as you go up the pyramid, the amount of competition that you experience narrows. And so what's at the top of the pyramid? Doing business directly with the end user. Because at that point, you've eliminated, for the most part, a general contractor. For the most part, you've eliminated bidding. So that protects your gross profit margins. So we said, well, how do you get to the end user? What's the best way for us to go from where we are today, predominantly bidding to general contractors, to developing a robust strategy for end user relationship building? And we landed on maintenance. Because we figured what we're doing today is we're installing carpet and resilient flooring in these commercial buildings. Then we're pulling out and we're going off to the next one. And if we have a maintenance division, we can leave behind a maintenance relationship. We introduce that end user to our maintenance division. And then as we move forward on our P&I business to the next project, we have someone sitting behind there with that end user, being our spy, being a source of recurring revenue, and giving us the first chance at any more product and installation, we call it P&I, any more P&I opportunities for that end user. And so that was our theory, was that maintenance would be the best first thing for us to invest in. And I would say to anybody out there who has a commercial flooring contracting business, if you have not seriously considered adding maintenance to your offering, you're missing a golden opportunity.
But that maintenance business just doesn't happen, Mike. I mean,
no, it doesn't.
Right. I mean, it's not, it's because I've seen many potential people who are very successful, and let's use your words, the P&I business, fail miserably when they've tried a maintenance business. And, I mean, I love your sentiment on trying to advise people to do maintenance. And, because, I mean, one thing about Flooring by the Numbers, Mick and I are extremely passionate about developing end user business, and so yes, we know your business intimately, and we know that the strength of that maintenance business, both from a profitability viewpoint and a customer retention viewpoint, is significant. And when you started the maintenance business, did you do that with a maintenance specialist, or did it, what allowed you to be successful where others failed?
Good question. I think the key to the success of our maintenance division is, when we started the business, number one, there has to be complete management commitment to the business, because it's not going to be easy. If you're not committed to sticking it out month after month, year after year, until you turn the tide, then you need to really rethink whether to get into the maintenance business. So number one, you need an ironclad commitment by management, ownership. All right. Number two is go out and poach. If you think you're going to build a maintenance business and you hire some young go-getter, you're seriously mistaken. You need somebody with the experience that you don't have. That's what I recognized. My business partner, Cy Baxley, recognized. And so what we did is we went out and we interviewed all of the serious commercial floor care businesses, salespeople. And what we did is we acted like a customer. And we said, we're thinking about partnering. We're thinking about maybe partnering with your company to get into the commercial maintenance business and offer that to our customers. And what we did is we went through all of these companies and we ended up finding a young guy, 35 years old, who had the requisite skills, drive, motivation. However, he was an employee. And what we did is we offered him 20% of this new division. And we said, you will earn in over X period of time through sweat equity. And at the end of the day, you'll own 20% of this company. Well, as a young father and a husband, he looked at his future at 35 years old and decided to leave the world of employee and join in building a company where he could have some long-term value be built in equity. And I don't think it's a secret. I don't think it's genius. I think it's as plain as the nose on your face. Don't try and recreate the wheel. There's already somebody out in your market who knows the maintenance business. But you've got to be willing to, one, be committed for the long haul, and two, be willing to give up some ownership. But it's worth it.
So your perspective around this is if you don't have that experience, you've got to buy that experience some way, you know what I mean, or you've got to invest in attaining that experience. So it's really what's first, the chicken or the egg, you know what I mean, and having that experience already ingrained in the startup is the critical element, because it is a different business, isn't it, Mike? I mean, the way that customers behave in the maintenance side is different to the P&I side, and I think even though people sort of inherently know that's the truth, that they don't manage it that way. They don't create that specialization around it, right? And you did that very successfully. I mean, you've grown that maintenance business substantially, and it's made a significant difference on your bottom line.
Yes, it has been an important contributor from a financial standpoint. There's no doubt. And I think one of the mistakes that you want to avoid if you're considering it, right? You need that management and ownership commitment. You need to hire the right person and incentivize them properly. And you need to have a separate sales force. You can ask some of the best commercial floor care companies who are attached to a P&I company. The P&I salesperson, it gets excited by a $100,000 contract, a $500,000 contract, in some cases, $1 million contract. Whereas the commercial floor care salesperson gets excited by a $5,000 contract or a $10,000 contract, or once in a while, a $50,000 contract. And then when you've hit the holy grail, you develop for a corporate campus an ongoing maintenance contract that's over 6 figures. And I'll share some numbers. You have a question?
No, I mean, I'd love you to share some numbers, please, Mike, because, you know, the difference is it's $5,000 every degree of frequency. And,
exactly.
and that is, you know, I mean, I know some of your customers have been with you for many, many, many years. And, you know, there is a switching cost associated with it. And there is a, you know, there is a longevity to this business, and it does become a very powerful annuity structure. So love you to share some numbers with us, please, Mike.
I'll give you an example that I gave during the roadshow back in late 2019, early 2020. And we landed a project with a fairly well-known Silicon Valley software company by the name of ServiceNow. CEO was on the cover of Forbes magazine. They built a vertical campus, 2 5-story buildings in Santa Clara. And the P&I contract for that job was approximately $1.25 million. Lovely job. Sue, one of our top salespeople, she landed that job through a relationship with the GC. And it was a 25% gross profit margin job when everything was said and done. And that was a beautiful job. We installed carpet and terrazzo and cork and polished concrete and vinyls. And it was just a beautiful, beautiful job, beautiful campus. But what we did, as I mentioned before, is as we were finishing that project and ServiceNow was beginning to move into the building, we introduced our maintenance division, at the time called Premier Maintenance Group. And what that turned into, this job we installed approximately 7 years ago. And ServiceNow, year in and year out, we maintain that entire facility along with a satellite facility they have. And that contract, on average, year in and year out, is worth $150,000.
So hang on, let's just pause there for a second. So we've got a $1.2 million odd contract that's delivered about $100,000 worth of annuity revenue per year for 7 years.
Correct. And more importantly, Andre, and I know this is running your company by the numbers, if I am not mistaken.
Nice.
The numbers are not the same, right? You can't compare that 1.2 million to the 100,000. And here's the reason why. That 1.2 million delivered $300,000 roughly of gross profit dollars. The $100,000 a year, which is more like $150,000 a year, well, for ease of math, we'll use 100,000. But for that $100,000 a year over 7 years is $700,000 in revenue, but at a 60+% gross profit margin. So now think about that. We turned a $1.2 roughly million P&I job into a recurring revenue stream that to date has delivered more gross profit dollars, over $400,000, than the original $300,000 P&I job.
And Mike, here's the thing. I mean, you know, how exciting is this? You know, here's the thing, because you know that's one of the things that I love about you, Mike. You know, you're so comfortable with you know, sharing numbers and you know, insight. You know, this is, it really is beautiful because, you know, it just gives other people a perspective. So when we talk about this, you know, we have this concept of, you know, what is the value of a lifetime customer? And when you have the type of business that you have, that is, you know, that is invaluable. I mean, you know, it's pretty much an annuity like any other great annuity type business. You know, and that's, you know, even though, like you said, the you know, the allure of a $5,000 contract versus, you know, $100,000, $200,000, $500,000 P&I job. You know, of course, all we, you know, we want that 500,000, 100,000, you know, those large P&I jobs. These $5,000 are not that sexy to us, and yet, as when I say us, I'm talking about the salesperson, and yet, you know, the financial benefit is so incredible, and we don't, you know, it just doesn't sort of settle home until you have a beautiful maintenance business that produces the types of revenues and profits that yours does.
So if I may, I think this talks to, you know, in terms of an evolution of a business, it's about specialization, because you'll never get the big rainmaker salespeople who are used to making big bids to large GCs and farming those big relationships to get interested in that, you know, type of activity. So having specialists who sell in that space are, you know, extremely critical if you want to go and sell that. And then the other thing I like about the maintenance business is its predictability. I mean, it's so hard to schedule, you know, all of the installers and the work that has to go with those big projects. Whereas, you know, those maintenance projects are very, very steady. We know it's going to come every month, easy to predict. And predictability in this kind of commercial flooring business is a major benefit if you can get it right.
Yeah, absolutely. So Mike,
hey, Andre, I just wanted, you know, there's one other slide that Mike had in his deck that I think, you know, should give everybody some heart, and that is the resilience of this business, Mike. And you had a slide in your roadshow deck about how commercial flooring is very resilient, fast to recovery when there's been an economic downturn. And would you say that you expect that to be true for our post-COVID world? I'll make it a little bit bigger. There you go.
Yeah, thanks, Mick. Yeah, no, indeed I do. I think really what we're probably beginning to experience in different parts of the country at different times coming out of the COVID pandemic is a V recovery, right? We 2020 was a tough year. 2021, we're still trying to get projects back open, and I think we're going to be off to the races in Q4 and 22 and beyond. And you know, all of the indicators that I pay attention to say that once again the commercial flooring business is going to maintain its resilience. And one of my favorite things about this business, and I'm sure everybody watching shares this, is that, you know, if they don't build a new building in the next 5 years in the San Francisco Bay Area, I really don't care, because there's tens of millions of square feet existing today that need to be maintained, remodeled, replaced, upgraded. And so there's a built-in business year in and year out, which is one of the things I love about this industry. And there's many things I love about it. But and so everybody should take heart that you're going to have a great 2022 and 2023. And one of the most important things is going to be to make sure you've got the labor source, you've got the internal team, and you've got dry powder. Those are the things that are going to enable you to take advantage of what's coming as we exit this pandemic.
So when you say dry powder, are you referring to a cash reserve?
I am. I'm the financial wherewithal to take advantage of projects. One of the things that we did and continue to do every day is not take bad business. Okay? You can't take bad business, especially when times are tough or times are slow or the competition is rampant and aggressive. Let them fill their wagon with shitty business. That is going to take them out of the game because their wagon's going to be full. We all have limited capacity, and let them fill their wagon with that low margin bad business. You keep your eye on the prize and focus on the profitable business that's coming in the second half of this year and into 22 and 23. And that having that dry powder, that capacity, both financial and otherwise, to take advantage of the profitable business that is coming.
Fantastic. Very, very wise words, because everybody's kind of grasping at any kind of business is good business. And as we know, our favorite phrase, revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is king. We want to make sure high profit work, good cash flowing work. Don't just go and chase bad revenue.
No. That's something that we all have to be diligent in paying attention to, certainly. But one other thing, back to maintenance, as the people watching this, right, you want to strengthen your companies for the coming decades. Those of you young enough to have that perspective. Those of you who are looking to exit in the next decade, you're looking to create the most value in your company. And how do you create the most value? You create the most value by having a recurring revenue stream. Let me say that again. A recurring revenue stream. That is what the private equity companies, the public markets, that's how they're going to value your company. If somebody purchases it, if you sell it to the next generation, if you sell it up into a consolidation to Lynx Capital, Diversify, Artisan Design Group, whoever it is, right? But even if you're just going to sell your company to your next generation, you want to maximize your value. And how you maximize value, it's universally recognized. Recurring revenue streams. In the commercial flooring business, the way to get an additional recurring revenue stream is with maintenance.
Yeah, I mean, maintenance has that, it's like the turbo end user business, because some of this is even contract driven. So it really, I love the maintenance business. I love the end user business. I think, anything that allows us to, differentiate our value proposition and our margin equation is great business. So, I know, Mike, we implemented let's call it the bad job policy. When was that? About 3-4 years ago, I think it was, wasn't it?
Indeed.
And the beautiful thing about this is over those years, hey, I mean, what we lost it was probably about $4 million of bad revenue, didn't we? Somewhere around there, something like that.
Yep. And we replaced it with a couple million dollars.
We replaced it. There you are, with beautiful revenue that, so it took its time, but I mean, we never missed a beat. And today, there's just an inherent discipline around bad revenue. And I think, what a turnaround. I mean, it was beautiful to see that. And so, congratulations.
So Andre and Mike, thank you for that clarion call about, getting recurring revenues, a value builder over time. We're coming up to our hour. This has been a fascinating and some
beautiful.
real good insights. Are there any closing comments that you'd like to make that we haven't covered?
I would say thank you, first of all, for inviting me to be on your show. As I said earlier, feel a real responsibility not only to my company and my employees, but to the industry as a whole, who has been so good to me. And so I think the industry's brightest days are ahead of it. I think there are going to be some changes. And I think you, as a business owner and or manager, need to be willing to think about and entertain those changes, because I think they're inevitable. Our industry is ripe for consolidation. I think you're beginning to see moves in that direction. And so pay attention to them, see how that can benefit your business, whether you join part of the consolidation or you learn from it, how to increase the performance of your business. And I have to tell you, this is not I was not told to make a commercial for this, but Andre and Mick have been critical to the continued and growing success of our company. I'm a little reluctant to share them with all of you, frankly, because they are so critical to the future of DSB Plus, but I think they can be critical to the future of your businesses and the improvement and the increase in profitability, and most importantly, enjoyment. We have to have fun. This has got to be fun,
right? So Mike, thanks for your kind words. We do have a question from Carol. She's a regular viewer on the show. She obviously sells profitable projects, but I think a question there, what kind of tactics might be used in between getting these prize projects? How do you think about keeping your employees busy when things start to get a little slow? What are some of the techniques that you might use there?
Yeah, that's a great question, Carol. And it is, boy, I wish I had the perfect answer for you. We all struggle with that. When our large projects, either we're in between them or things slow down, you certainly want to hold on to your best installers. And it's a challenge for all of us. I wish I had a magic answer for you. But one of the things we will not do is we will not keep them working on no profit work. We sit down with them, we say to them, look, we have to remain profitable for you to have a job and projects to work on for us in the future. And so if you need to take a few days, and we working our guys 2 days here, 3 days there, and we bring them all together and say, look, let's share the work during this slow period so we can get everybody back in a busy period.
Okay. Carol, thanks for your question. I always love having you on the show. Thanks, and hope to talk with you soon. So yeah, we're dead on the hour. Once again, everybody, thank you for turning up to the show. Mike, always a delight. Thank you for the time that you've gifted us today. And every week, this time Wednesday, we'll be here. And for all of those watching on record, if you do have questions, then let us know, and we'll try and get them answered. So we'll look forward to seeing you next week.
All the best. Bye-bye.